Hey, what's going on? I'm Matt O'Leary back with another video. Before we get started, I just want to mention that you can follow me on social media at Matt O'Leary NY. So today what we're going to be talking about is a little expectations, and I'm going to go through some of the bigger name guys on the Jets throughout the offseason here and as we're in the preseason and talk about my expectations for 2019 for each one of these guys. And we will start this series off with the most important player on the New York Jets in 2019, Sam Darnold. For context, I'll run through his 2018 stats. So he had a 57.7 completion percentage. He threw for 2,865 yards, 17 touchdowns, 15 interceptions, 6.9 yards per attempt, and a 77.6 rating. An up and down rookie year. He got hurt. He only played 13 games, mind you, but he showed some signs of being a very good quarterback. He showed some signs of struggling, like most rookies do. For instance, on his first pass in the NFL, being a pick six. He also had a terrible game against Miami where he threw for 4 interceptions and got hurt because the center couldn't snap the ball. But he also showed a lot of positive signs, especially in the last 4 games of the year. So if you isolate those last 4 games when he came back from injury, they played against Buffalo, they played against Houston, they played against Green Bay, and then they played against the New England Patriots. So some pretty quality matchups there. And he had a 63.9 completion percentage, 931 yards, 6 touchdowns, 1 interception, 7.4 yards per attempt, and a 96.7 rating. By Pro Football Focus, he was the highest rated quarterback over the last 4 weeks of the season. If you put him on a pace based on those last 4 games, that's 24 touchdowns to 4 interceptions, 3,724 yards. Now, what does that all really mean? Again, is he going to put on that kind of numbers in 2019? I don't think it's fair to expect that. I think it's going to be, again, a little bit of up and down, but hopefully in 2019 you're getting a little bit more consistency. So now what I'll do is I will go through and I will give you what I think he will do in each one of the main categories. So we'll start by yards. Where do I think he goes? Like I said, he was on pace in the final 4 weeks to be on 3,724 yards. I think he's going to go slightly higher than that because I think the Jets will pass the ball a little bit more. Yes, they brought in Le'Veon Bell, one of the better running backs in the league, but what he's really good at is catching balls out of the backfield. They also brought in Jamison Crowder, and he's going to help out in the slot. The Jets have more depth at the wide receiver position and the running back position for the first time in a long time. And Herndon really looks like a player. So after his suspension is up after week 4, he should definitely be in the mix for the Jets as well. So I think that number goes up because of the amount of targets that the Jets could have in the passing game. Additionally, guys like Crowder and Le'Veon Bell are phenomenal at yards after the catch. So maybe he's going to hit Le'Veon Bell on a little 2-yard pass, but that turns into 10 yards because of what Le'Veon can do with the ball in his hand. Granted, I love Bilal Powell. I think he is phenomenal. I think he's a very good running back. But he is the 3rd running back on the depth chart. Ty Montgomery is the 2nd. He has a similar skill set to Le'Veon Bell in that he could be used in the backfield and catching balls out of the backfield. So Sam Darnold is going to be throwing the ball more, which I think should yield more results and more yards. 3,800 seems like a lot, but I think that's certainly obtainable. The next stat that I'm going to talk about is completion percentage. On the entire year last year, he was around 57%. In his 4-game sample size at the end, it was closer to 64%. I think he probably falls somewhere in the middle here. I'm going to say 62.5. That's still pretty solid. A lot of Jets quarterbacks, we haven't seen them throw for that much of a completion percentage outside of Josh McCown in 2017 when he's dinking and dunking his way down the field. But even in Ryan Fitzpatrick's 2015 year, which was one of the better quarterback years in Jets history, his completion percentage was right around there, slightly under 60%. Where does Sam Darnold fit into this? I don't really see him as a 70% completion percentage guy. I think he's more of a gunslinger type, which we saw a little bit in year 1 and what he projects as in the NFL. He's not going to have the highest completion percentage. He is going to take some risks with throws, which will lead to higher interception numbers and a lower completion percentage, but that also leads to potential for more big plays. And listen, he's just not going to be a guy who's going to complete 70% of his passes like Drew Brees. I think if he gives you a 62.5, you'll be extremely happy with that. Next up, I'm going to go with the touchdowns. I'm going to talk about that. Obviously, he had 17 in 13 games last year. I expect that number to increase, but by how much? I didn't want to go over 30, which I think eventually he can hit, but I'm going to say he takes a pretty good step forward. In year 2, that usually tends to happen for quarterbacks. I mean, look at Jared Goff. Carson Wentz, quarterbacks like that. They recently took that second-year leap. Patrick Mahomes, even if you want to mention him. But I didn't want to go up as high as 30. That team seems to be a little bit unrealistic. I'm going to tamper my expectations a little bit. I'm going to go with 26. So I'll take that. 3,800 yards, 26 touchdowns. I think that's pretty solid for Sam Darnold in year 2. Next up, I want to talk about interceptions. So he had 15 in 13 games last year. We have seen Jets quarterbacks in years gone by throw a lot of interceptions. Unfortunately, that's been the status quo for the Jets quarterback position for a long time. And Sam Darnold, while I think he has everything that you want in a franchise quarterback and looks to be on track to be one, I think he's going to be someone who's going to throw a little bit in the higher numbers for interceptions. Now, I'm not talking like 20 every year or anything like that, what we saw from like Geno Smith or Mark Sanchez in his first year. I think he's going to be double digits in interceptions probably each year up until the low teens is probably where you're going to look at. I don't think it'll ever get over 16, which is 1 per game. For this year, I'm going to say he has 12 interceptions, which I would absolutely sign up for 3,800 yards, 26 touchdowns, and 12 interceptions. I think that's completely fine from Sam Darnold in year 2. I also expect his yards per attempt number to go up. Now, granted, last year it was 7.4 in that 4-game sample at the end and 6.9 in the previous set of games that he played before his injury. I think it probably falls somewhere in the middle. I'll go 7.1. I'll split the difference. As long as it's over 7 yards per attempt, I think I'll be pretty happy. I don't expect him to be in that 8 yards per attempt range. Probably around between 7 and 8 is going to be my prediction, but I'll go on the lower end again here with 7.1. And lastly, for a quarterback rating, I'm going to go somewhere around 94.5. Overall in 2018, he had a 77.6 quarterback rating. During the final stretch, it was a 96.7 in his last 4 games. Again, I think it's going to be a little bit stepped down, but overall a great season. And if his stat line is 3,800 yards, 26 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, yards per attempt over 7, and a quarterback rating in the 90s, I think you got to be extremely happy with that. And that means that the Jets are playing meaningful games in November and December, which what their coach Adam Gase said that they were going to do. And that's really all you're asking for. Yes, you want to make the playoffs. You haven't made the playoffs since 2010. But the most important thing for this year is for Sam Darnold to show that he is a franchise quarterback. If he puts up those kinds of numbers, he's proved it to me. And then from here on out, we could see that touchdown number increase even more so. Let me know in the comments what you think Sam Darnold is going to do this year. Let me know if you agree with me. Maybe it's a little bit higher, a little bit lower, whatever. That's fine. And you can get at me on social media at Matt O'Leary NY. I wanted to mention, too, that during games, I do a ton of GIFs on Twitter, so make sure to get at me on Twitter, especially at Matt O'Leary NY. If you missed it from my live tweets from the first game in the preseason against the Giants, you can go check those out, and I'll be live tweeting again for every single game this year. So thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys next time.